Okay, Sony 85 f1.4 GM Mark II is a piece of shit. There are so many people that don't like this lens, and I can understand where they're coming from, but we do have to take a lot more into consideration of what Sony are actually doing, and I want to discuss that in this video, talking about price, weight, Sony's direction, and just, is this lens actually for you, or is it for someone else? We obviously have to talk about it, so let's get it. Now also look, I'm holding the microphone because this is the Sony ECM S1 podcast microphone. It is phenomenally clear, but if I don't hold the microphone, I'm in my lounge room and this is tile floor, bare walls. You will hear a ton of echo. So when you actually want quality audio, all you need to do is be as close to that speech bubble as possible, and that's going to give you absolutely quality audio. So that's why I'm holding this microphone. Plus this goes directly into my camera and I don't have to pair it and sync it in post. So fantastic audio. This is what I'm going to do, so you're going to have to deal with it for the rest of the video. So I decided to make something for you guys, and mainly for the fact that I really wanted to see what it was actually like to have the Nikon 85 f1.2, because a lot of people are like, obviously the Canon has 85 1.2, Nikon has 85 1.2, and why doesn't Sony have the 85 1.2? Why do they bring out an 1.4? Well, this is my creation. This is the exact dimensions of the Nikon 85 f1.2. Now look at the size of this. This is literally on the Sony FX30. It's huge. It is absolutely huge. Now the Nikon, I think, is 1,160 grams, whereas the Sony 85 f1.4 happens to be 642 grams. So literally almost twice the weight of this lens to get an f1.2. And one of the Sony's biggest philosophies is trying to have small, light, fast, compact GM primes. And they're trying to make things as accessible and easy as possible. If people want to travel, they can literally just throw this in the bag. It's not going to feel so heavy. But if you literally had it's over a kilo, so 1160 or something grams, 1190 grams. Absolutely massive, really heavy. The size is just, it's insane. It is absolutely insane. Like, I can understand where you're coming from. I really do understand that in 2024, the 50-1.2 is out. Why not bring an 85 1.2? But Sony's philosophy is that they wanted to round off the 24, 35, 50, and 85 f1.4 range and keep them consistent. Just update them, make them obviously have the dual XD linear focusing motors, so it's really fast autofocus for hybrid shooters, because the 85 f1.4 was mainly predominantly for photographers. Photographers absolutely love that lens still to this day. But it's an absolute beast. It is huge. It's bigger than the 50mm f1.2 in the Sony range. And if you're trying to make an 85 f1.2 in the Sony range, it's just going to be the same size as the Nikon or Canon one. It's just insane how big this is. I'm going to put this on the ZV-E1 and you'll see how big this thing is. This is the Sony ZV-E1. And this is apparently the Nikon 85mm f1.2. This is how big it would be if it was on the ZV-E1. Absolute ginormous. It is insane. And traveling with these things is just really difficult, but you do obviously have to take it into consideration. People who buy the f1.2 lenses probably aren't traveling. They're probably working professionals doing photography, a little bit of hybrid, videography stuff. But the size is the biggest thing that Sony taking into consideration, and just want things to be as small as possible. I don't know. It's not my philosophy. It's Sony's philosophy. I understand it. For me personally, I don't care about the size. If the camera is big, it's big. If the lens is big, it's big. Who cares? I'll do more gym workouts. It's perfectly fine. Strength is no issue for me. Sure, you will get fatigue after a while, but it is what it is. It's not too bad. Like my Sony FX6 is absolutely massive when I completely rig it out with cinema gear, V-mount batteries, and whatnot. It's crazy massive. It's heavy. It is what it is. It's perfectly fine. It's a big beast. But I understand what Sony are doing. They want to, produce lenses that are high quality, really fast autofocus, and just really light, and they just work. And that's where the f1.4 sort of comes into play. And also with the 85 f1.4 GM2, people are like, this should have been released, 2 or 3 years ago. And I absolutely agree. It should have been released, 2 years ago. This is a lens that I have been waiting for a while. My GM Mark 1 with the 85 is absolutely horrible. The autofocus is just, for me, just not usable on the Sony FX6. It's not fast enough. It's clunky. It's loud. It just does not work. I actually have to throw it in manual focus a lot and try and manual focus with it. And then like the chromatic aberration for me, I'm just not a fan. It's just not a clean lens. And but that's not going to make me buy 85 GM Mark II. I said this in my video. This lens is fantastic. It's amazing, but it's not for me. The 50mm f1.2 that I'm filming on right now is more than enough. All I need to do is just walk a little bit closer in and I'm perfectly fine. If I am using the 50mm, that's great on a set. All I need to bring is my 24 and 35, and I've sort of covered the wide angle. I've got the telephoto. Don't really need to get really close. I mean, if I do, then that's probably where I'd get the 85, or even just go the 135 GM. What is it, the f1.8? That lens is absolutely phenomenal. But for me, it's not for me. It's not for me. And that's what a lot of people have to understand, is that some of these lenses that Sony brings out, it's probably not made for you. It's okay. It's okay for a lens to not be made for you. You don't have to buy every single Sony lens that they bring out. They're bringing it out for a very specific purpose for a relatively specific person. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. Don't buy it. Just move on. Appreciate that Sony is still bringing out a ton of fantastic lenses. Now, also in saying that, like if they did bring out an f1.2, we obviously have to talk about the price, because at $17.99 US for an f1.4 85 is pretty good, because that is the exact same price that the 85 GM Mark 1 actually is as well. So they haven't actually price hiked it, which is great, especially in this kind of economy where, we're pretty much struggling to pay for food these days. It's pretty insane. And the price of the Nikon version is about $2,800. So you're saying you would actually pay $1,000 US more for an f1.2 over an f1.4? Is that what you're actually saying? That's what a lot of people are actually saying. They're willing to pay $1,000 for an extra 1.2 over an f1.4. I mean, if you have the money, absolutely go for it. If you're working professional, go for it. That's fine. That is perfectly fine. But that's what people have to take that into consideration, that it's going to be bigger, it's going to be heavier, it's going to be more expensive, or you could go the slightly lighter and cheaper option for the f1.4 and no one would beg to differ. They would probably think it's the same lens. Now, another point that I have to make why people didn't really care about the 85 f1.4 is that Sony handed this to pretty much absolutely everyone who shoots on Sony. Like literally, there were so many videos dropped on that embargo date, and that's perfectly fine. It is what it is. But the thing that I kind of have a little bit of an issue with is that there were 90%, maybe 95% of people literally just did testing charts. They would go to their backyard, they would take a picture of a flower, they would take a picture of a brick wall and see the image quality and make a video about it that way. That is just, it is annoying because there are so many videos that are literally carbon copies of each other. I took this lens and I made a mini documentary / spec ad about a guy with one leg doing CrossFit, because I wanted to see what this would be like in a professional situation. That's what majority of the people who actually got this lens should be doing. They should, if they're a photographer, grab someone and try and do a professional, in quotes, shoot to try and mimic what they would go through. And then they can actually test the lens and see how it actually performs in the field and not just, in their backyard taking a picture of a blade of grass. Like these things are what we have to consider when we make these videos. And the annoying thing is that people who actually put the effort in, their videos just don't perform as well because they've seen thousands of other 85 f1.4 videos out there and they don't want to see another one. So, literally there were like 5% of people that actually used their lens in a professional situation. Manny Ortiz, Julia Trotti, photographers, brilliant photographers, actually used it on a professional situation. There was one YouTuber, he had less than 1,000 subs or something, or just over 1,000 subs, Jason somebody. He actually tested this on like 3 different shoots and a wedding. So kudos to him. Well done. You're actually testing this in a professional situation, then talking about your experience, how it actually performs in a professional situation, and not just on a test chart and not just on yourself, whatever. Like, it sounds like a bit of a rant, but we as YouTubers need to do better. We need to provide quality advice in situations that we would normally use these lenses in. And that's what I personally try to do. That's my philosophy on this channel. Try and use it in at least an actual professional paid job, or a mocked job, something that we've mocked up that's kind of like a professional job, and see how these things perform. Lights, cameras, lenses, whatever it is, testing it that way is so much better, and better for our audience to actually give us a genuine opinion about these lenses if they're actually decent. So look, to cap off this video, we have to take this all into consideration. Like I said, yes, Sony most likely will probably bring an f1.2 lens because they kind of did that with the 50mm. They've got the 50mm f1.2 and the 1.4. So they might actually bring out a 35 1.2, a 24 1.2, and an 85 1.2 to cap out that range. We don't know, but these lenses just gives us extra options to work with. We don't have to buy every single lens. There are third-party options that you can actually get as well. It's perfectly fine. Go for it. Don't stick with just Sony lenses. You can go Sigma, you can go Tamron. It's just a lot of the times Sony lenses are a little bit more expensive, but they do actually hold their value as well, specifically because they're really great quality GM lenses. Even just regular G lenses still hold their value because they're just decent quality. They're fully weather sealed, and they're obviously designed specifically for your Sony camera, so the autofocus generally will perform better. So that's pretty much why I generally go, Sony autofocus lenses, but not all the time. But yeah, if you have stuck around all the way to this end, thanks for watching. And yeah, this is kind of like my new rant corner that I've kind of, mocked up because it's quite nice, it's comfortable, and it's just relaxing. It just makes me think because I've got outside beautiful blue skies, and yeah, obviously makes it look like sunset because of my lighting situation. But yeah, anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Let's get it.